Welcome back to Cycling Unboxed, and today we have the Factor Hanzo. I think one of the coolest looking time trial bikes out there, and it's got a very unique style to it. It's got kind of like a muscly, haunchy look to it. I've got the Bear or Do, and I think this is like the big daddy version of my bike. It's got some really cool shapes on it, so I can't wait to bring you in closer. Obviously, as you can probably see, we haven't got a group set on here at the moment, but that's okay because all group sets are the same, but it's the frame shapes that we're looking at for this bike. We will weigh it in at the end, and if you want to add a group set weight on top of that, then you can do that from there. Let's get in closer. Now, of course, we've just put a normal saddle on here just for demo purposes, but normally you would get a time trial saddle with this bike here. But starting off on the seat post here, man, it's so deep. It's literally as wide as my hand. Look at that, that's insane. But it's very haunchy, very muscly, not as narrow as the Factor Ostro seat post, but it's got, once again, a very sharp nose to it and more of a camtail flat back to it as well. And to adjust it, the bolt sits underneath here towards 8 Newton meters, and you get your rubber flap to sit over the top just to keep that transition nice and smooth there. Then if we come to the front end here, most bikes only come with like normal round poles. These ones come with this more D-shaped pole here, just to close the gap between the forearm and the bar here. Should make it slightly more aerodynamic. Then of course, with the pads, lots of adjustability. This is just in a display model, but I think most people would turn these bars closer together at the top, and you can do that here. You can see there's space for the bars to literally twist inwards. But yeah, lots of adjustability as you would expect with a modern day time trial bike. And I think that's where most advancements have come in modern day time trial bikes, adjustability of the front end. The top piece itself is bolted on to the mono riser, so it sits at the top there. You've got some adjustment from the mono riser up and down on the front here. And as usual, you've got a very sharp end and lots of depth to it. I believe a mono riser is meant to be marginally more aero, just because you have one surface area rather than two surface areas sticking up. It is very integrated, this bike, so you can see lots of covers, lots of stuff to hide the cables away as you go lower down there. With the bars, this is the only area where it's blunter on the front end and then tapers off to a camtail on the back end there. So I'm not totally sure why, but obviously Factor in their wind tunnel would have been able to design that instead of having a sharper front end like we have here. If we keep going lower, it runs this bayonet system, so where the steering essentially is in top and bottom here, but you have a bayonet that sticks out the front, and I think it allows you to get an even deeper head tube than what would normally allow for the UCI rules. And I believe it's just a bit more aerodynamic on the front here as one edge goes to the other. You can see that at the front end of the bayonet, we have this little lip that comes over. You've seen this on other bikes, so I believe there must be some aerodynamic advantage by getting this nose further forward over the wheel. All of the frame shapes very smoothly run into each other here. It's really nice to run your hand over, and you can just imagine the air running nice and smoothly over this section as well. As we come to the front end, you can see that there's lots of space between the front of the fork. I've got 2 fingers in there, no comments please, but loads of space. So essentially I imagine the reason for this is that there's less interaction between the wheel and the fork blade here, and that makes it aerodynamically smoother for the airflow to travel through and then attach on to the down tube here. I'm not an aerodynamicist, that's just what I've got in my head as to why that is the reason. Other interesting stuff along the fork though is that we do have this smooth integration for the through axle here, which is nice and flat. You can't see it from the front. And of course, this side is slightly hidden as well on this side here. But fun stuff for the brake caliper itself. So there's no brake caliper on there, but you can see we've got added width here. So this just hides the brake caliper behind the fork a little bit more, just so it just makes it slightly more aerodynamic. As usual with an aero bike, we have a wider front end, and it's almost very square. Like I said, it gives it this muscly, haunchy look as it narrows and tapers off to a narrower waist at the back here. Not like the Factor Ostro where it's extremely skinny. It's got a little bit of bulk back here, you know? It's blunter on the front end again on this seat tube with that normal camtail. And then as we go down a little bit further, just check out how big this seat stay is. I mean, it's ginormous. It's catching dust sitting on the top of it here, but it's very thin on the front end. So I'd imagine you get loads of control of airflow, and it seems to extend itself further out the back here. Maybe that brings more air onto the wheel. I'm not totally sure. And then of course, with any usual aero bike, you have this integrated carbon depth that hugs the wheel a lot closer, and it keeps going up the top here. You see that on the Colnago as well, where it just has more carbon staying close to the wheel, and that must show some aerodynamic benefit. But man, look at the depth of that seat stay, it's huge. Same again, nearly as wide as my hand again. And a very sharp front nose and a sharp tail end on this one as well. You can see me in the reflection there, hello. So when you look at the depth of this, I'd imagine having extra depth here semi-hides the cassette a little bit from the wind, making it slightly more aero. Like I said, I can't confirm that, but that's just what I've got on my head. You can see that there was loads of space at the front, but actually the limiting factor to the tyre width is definitely going to be the rear end here. We are running a 28 on this tyre, and you can see just how close it is. So I think you could definitely get a 30. You could potentially get a 32 in there, but it is getting very close by that point. As we come to the down tube, your usual normal, lots of depth, rounder front end with that camtail flat back to it. But the interesting stuff about this one is that it has a thinner top section and it gets wider as you get to the bottle cage section here, obviously to hide the bottle behind the fork. Now it doesn't come with its own integrated bottle like we are seeing nowadays, so you can just run a normal bottle or a thin aero bottle there, but there actually isn't too much space, so you can't get one bottle here, so maybe not for your middle distance, full distance Ironman setups, this one, just because there's less storage in the front here. It really is a pure speed, shorter distance time trial bike, this one. But it's nice to see that they do have bottle cages on the back. You don't need to run those bolts, you can just tape over them, and that will make it smoother and more aerodynamic. It does also come with the Di2 junction port here. That's of course for the older generation, the previous 11-speed one. With a new 12-speed, you of course don't need that. It just goes straight to the rear derailleur. Then we get to the wheels, and well, Black Ink, obviously owned by Factor, they keep it nice and simple with their wheel naming, and this is the Black Ink 3, and I don't think you need any explanation as to why. But one thing I do love about these wheels is the carbon weave that you can see through there, and I wish you could see better on camera. It's almost like this wavy compressed carbon. Look, it looks magnificent. I do actually prefer it on the gloss section more than I do on the matte section, just because I feel like you can see it more. The shape of these spokes are fairly interesting as well. If I look at the matte section here, you can see this ridge that comes down here. So it seems like it's got a sharper front end up top, but blunter at the bottom. And then as you go to the back, it's reversed. So it's a little bit blunter at the top and then sharper at the back end as you go here. So once again, that must be something in their testing where this tri-spoke seems to be faster with these edges. It must trip the air and keep the airflow attached. The actual depth here looks like it's about 50 mil, maybe 60. It's quite hard to tell just because everything else is so deep on there. But I'd imagine this makes it a little bit more stable in the crosswinds. And I do believe a tri-spoke is a little bit faster than a normal spoked wheel. Then we get onto the disc wheel, and this is the Black Ink 0 because, well, 0 spokes on it. And we get that carbon weave effect again. I mean, look at it, it's just so cool to look at. If I could have one of these disc wheels, I definitely would, because they look amazing. It does dish in here, and I'd imagine that hides the cassette a little bit again as it sits behind the dish. You see that on the Aero Coach wheels as well, so there must be a huge aerodynamic advantage by having that dish in. But then if we come to the other side, you can see it's much smoother as you only have the disc brake there. It's more dome shaped, and I know that this disc wheel is specifically designed to fit with this bike. So I think if you're running this bike, you definitely have to run this disc wheel. Also looks like it's definitely designed for the 28mm tire. So you can see just how well, if I get the side view, that it integrates there. It does seem that the edge is 105% the width of the tire. So running a 28 there. What we've got on here is the Corsa Pro at the moment. You could go to the Corsa Pro Speed, but these are more than fast enough tires themselves. If you want to, you can run these tubeless as well, which rolling resistance wise is a faster setup, or as fast as you can go, as fast as latex, but you do have that semi-puncture resistance. There's a chance that the tire might seal when you're running tubeless there. Okay, let's weigh this guy in. So this is a size medium here. I think I could probably just about get away with a medium if the seat post is all the way up. But remember, there's no group set on there, no bottom bracket at the moment, nothing, but you can literally just add the weight of the group set on top of here, plus some pedals as well, and then you're ready to go. I've got 6.53 kilos on there, so add your group set and your pedals on top of that. A lot of time trial bikes nowadays, well, because of the integration and how skinny they are on the front, they do have a lot of steering lock, and this one is another one of those. You can see just that's about as much turn as you can get from it until it locks out. But honestly, when you're actually riding, this makes zero difference. You're never ever going to turn the bars this much, especially on a time trial bike. The only time you need more turn is when you're at very low speeds on a normal road bike. So for this, you would never notice that when you're on it. Well guys, there it is, the Factor Hanzo. I think that this is one of the daddies of time trial bikes. It's so aggressive, it's so muscly and haunchy, it just looks so cool. It's got presence to it. Even in this black edition here, and black with the tan sidewalls, looks amazing. Let me know what you think guys, and if any of you own this bike, I'd love to know how you get along with it. Anyway, I've been Jason, this has been Cycling Unboxed. I'll see you in another video.